I've used technology for as long as I can remember. Well, I had obviously watched television and possibly operated an old computer. The first instances that I can pinpoint are playing mobile games on my mom's iPhone and dad's iPad. More specifically, I remember playing Angry Birds and Clash of Clans. I love playing mobile games. Rovio's Angry Birds was a massively popular game in the 2010s. It's still around somewhat today, but it's not the same. The original game is still available, but it costs 99 cents, which I did buy for nostalgia. The sequel that is far more overcomplicated than the original. I would argue that for a kid learning digital literacy for the first time, the original game was much more intuitive. The original game was about a group of birds who were angry at green pigs for stealing their eggs. You launch the birds from a slingshot at structures housing the pigs. Some of the birds even had special abilities as being extra fast or exploding, but despite the simple concept, it was still incredibly fun. They also had spin-offs such as Angry Birds Space, Angry Birds Rio, and my personal favorite, the creme de la creme, Angry Birds Star Wars. I played countless hours of it on my mom's iPhone 4, whenever she was not using it. I remember trying to get 3 stars on each level. I'd play them over and over again until I did them perfectly. I had an Angry Birds t-shirt, and my grandparents even bought me an Angry Birds Star Wars toy for Christmas one year. Needless to say, it was like one of my favorite things ever. In a similar sense, my dad and I played a game called Clash of Clans on his iPad together. Supercell made Clash of Clans. The game didn't have much of a story, but your goal was to build a town and defend it from incoming invaders who seek to steal your gold and secondary currency called Elixir. Unlike Angry Birds, Clash of Clans had online functionality, which allowed players to attack other villages and join what was called a clan. I was in a clan with my friends. Clash of Clans is still around, and I know a couple people who still play it. My dad actually played it for a long time after I stopped playing it. It was also, coincidentally, the game that got him hooked on video games. Based on these experiences, I was inspired to make my first major purchase. In 4th grade, my best friend Aiden showed me his iPod Touch. I was amazed that something that was not an iPhone could have all the features of one, such as playing games, iMessage, and FaceTime. My mom was very much against me getting a phone at that age, but when I pitched buying an iPod, she was on board, provided I saved up all the money myself. The iPod was around $100, which was a lot for a 10-year-old with no job. I got an allowance, but in order to get an iPod, I'd have to work extra. That was the year I started mowing the lawn. My dad agreed to give me extra money if I mowed the lawn every Sunday. I obeyed and did it diligently every week, along with some other chores. It helped me learn a work ethic while I was young. Eventually, after months of saving, I had enough to buy the iPod. I can still remember the feeling of counting the money on my bed and realizing that I had enough. I had done it. What had seemed like an impossibly large sum of money just months before was now in my hands. Soon enough, I had another digital literacy experience. I had to order the iPod online. It was the first time I can remember ordering something online. We went through a process that's not too different than ordering something online today. We selected the options I wanted for the iPod, put in the credit card and shipping information. It was a refurbished 4th generation model, which was slightly old at the time, but nonetheless I was excited. I gave my parents the cash and they helped me place the order. We ordered a case and a screen protector for it as well. I was so excited. I waited patiently for the iPod to arrive, and when it did, I opened it as fast as I could. Then I had to order another skill, setting up the iPod, which is almost identical to setting up an iPhone today. And I feel like that skill is very important, especially now when we buy new phones every few years. I had to set up an Apple ID password. It was the first password I could recall setting up. I actually still use that password for a few things. Once I had the iPod, I was not only able to play the games I adored, but also learn many new skills. I learned how to FaceTime, text, take photos, and even, once my mom allowed me to, use social media. My first social platforms were YouTube, Google+, and Instagram. I remember FaceTiming Aiden for the first time. It was so much fun. I had never been able to call anyone before. If Aiden and I wanted to talk, we had to wait until school or have my mom call his mom and ask for us to hang out. Technology was a whole new world for us. That old iPod was probably the biggest digital literacy sponsor in my life, but it most certainly was not my only sponsor. In this narrative alone, a few make themselves known as my parents, Aiden, Apple and their devices, Rovio, Supercell, YouTube, Google+, and Instagram. Without them, I don't feel like I'd be the person I am today with the knowledge I have today. In conclusion, my digital literacy was built by the sponsors I had in my early life. Mobile games was what inspired me to learn more about digital technologies. I honestly believe that without playing games on my parents' phones as a kid, I would not be a communications and digital studies major or planning to work in social media after college. I'm so proud of how far I have come in the digital world. I went from someone who only wanted technology to play video games to someone with thousands of followers on social media and many online projects that I can look back on proudly.